Hey, today we're going to be talking about Post 2, Why Study Popular Culture. We were required to read a little thing and then watch a video and then do some takeaways. But the summary of the reading for me was, well, one, the later part of it, I didn't fully understand what he was getting at. The paragraph where he just kind of starts talking about how, like, Russia makes vodka, Italy drinks wine. It was just kind of like a nothing burger. I felt like there wasn't any meaning there, but there probably was, and I just didn't pick it up, which partially goes into what we're talking about today. But the actual reading did generally cover popular culture, and it talked about how the time for ideas to get to other people can take time, especially when you're going from big thing to big thing to smaller things. Specifically citing that some places in the US still don't have the internet. Another thing that he touched on was that most things in the world have to do with popular culture in a way simply because of marketing. In order to sell things, marketing needs to happen. The video talked about how most people spend a lot of time in their day consuming media in a bunch of different mediums. Generally, what I took away was that if you are sitting down and doing an activity, you are probably consuming a media in some extent. Um, then the other thing it talked about was the problem with media literacy. There was a bunch of stuff kind of in the middle of the video, but to me it was just kind of filler. It was kind of a weird explanation of how media happens, which I guess it's something that most people might not think about, but it's something I think about pretty often. Like, am I going to get across what I mean by typing this because I have a weird way of texting? But media literacy, they talked about how media literacy is not a super common thing. Misinformation happens even if the information they read was correct. And then they kind of had a call to action at the end where they're like, hey, tell people you know about media literacy, kind of spread the word, all that. For me, media is kind of weird. I would say I don't consume all that much media that I don't choose to. In this day and age, people are consuming media all the time that they aren't intending to consume. So things like ads, things on the internet that generally people just take as what it is. And I think that's where most things media wise happen these days. You aren't really seeing people fight as much over a billboard spot as much as they'd be fighting for an ad in the, New York Times, right? So for me, it's kind of weird because, like, I don't have TikTok. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Snapchat. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. All I have is Discord, which used to have ads, doesn't anymore, and also now has this, like, quest thing where it, like, kind of pushes new games to you. But I am a pretty advent person. I hate ads and stuff like that. So I have my own ad blocker and VPN setup that I've kind of jury rigged myself from an ad blocker called uBlock Origin. And so I don't get anything like that. Like, I don't have any YouTube ads. I don't have any ads on Netflix. I don't have their pause experience where you pause and then an ad is on the screen while you pause. I don't have any of that. They're all just black boxes for me. So I see where the ad should be, but I don't see the ad itself. However, that doesn't mean I'm not influenced by media still. I would say earlier, when I was in high school, I definitely wasn't as adamant about this kind of stuff. I got a lot more into understanding what I'm reading and what I'm learning when Trump was voted into office in 2020. That was because although Trump wasn't standing there saying some crazy, heinous things like to shoot people if he loses the election, there were a lot of things he was saying that were being misconstrued. And where I lived, out in the Midwest, school was closed that day. School was closed on the day of the election because they had received so many shooting threats from both students and adults alike that were saying if Trump lost, they were going to come to school with a gun. And luckily, that didn't happen because Trump, no, yes, Trump won. Sorry, this was the time Trump won. This was back in 2016. And so school didn't happen that day. And after that, I was like, I wonder why this is happening. I didn't know what could drive people to such extremities because I wasn't a politics guy at that point. I still wouldn't say I'm a politics guy, but I like to stay informed. And so then I started reading more and I started seeing the things where it's like these people weren't directly taking Trump was saying something crazy like that, but there was a lot of radicalization that was happening in the right wing party at the time. And that radicalization has largely stuck around, and also the leftists have generally radicalized in response, which is kind of ironic. So now you have two super hard end sides. But this isn't about politics, which, you know, um, but in doing so, that's kind of when I started learning a lot more about media literacy because I wanted to stay informed. And in my opinion, that's the main drive for media literacy these days. The internet is so full of crazy, weird things that you have no idea are right or wrong, especially with way more AI stuff going on. I mean, AI will just spit out wrong information all the time, and then people believe it, and it's just like, whoa. There's videos you can look up on YouTube that are kind of funny. They're presented as comedy videos, but they're kind of scary. Like, if you Google search how many what's a healthy thing for a pregnant woman to do in the early stages of Google AI, one of the results would come back is a pregnant woman should smoke 3 cigarettes a day. It's like, whoa, obviously not, but AI said it, and that was crazy. Within the things I've been personally influenced in, one of the earlier things was Raycon earbuds. It's a super popular uh, partnership ad on YouTube. And so what that means is the actual YouTuber making the video itself puts the ad in their video and like makes it themselves. So it's not like a skippable ad or a blockable ad, although generally I just skip past where the ad is. But eventually I got into a sport, rock climbing, that I couldn't really use wired headphones nearly as well, although I just ended up doing that anyway later. But I was like, I want to get some wireless headsets, and I knew they were only $60 and high quality because of all of these ads I heard like every other video um, from all these different things. And so I got Raycons. I stopped using them later because I hate wireless earbuds, and that even goes to show how like powerful ad marketing can be. I got them even though I knew I didn't really like wireless earbuds, but I was thinking I might like these better. Another one is a movie called Pacific Rim 2. It's a sequel. Most people hate it. I do too. I love the first one. Second one's really bad. And that's partially because the company got bought out by a large company in China, and then a lot of the story changed. And part of the story changing was the scenery. They wanted stuff to be shot now in cities in China. But the other problem is Pacific Rim 2 is a kaiju movie. So it involves destroying a bunch of buildings, it involves a bunch of destruction, all this kind of stuff. And generally, this company didn't want to have a city like Shanghai being destroyed by a monster because that would project a air of weakness. But they were okay with doing that in Hong Kong, so they shot it in Hong Kong. Um, so it was pretty interesting to think about that. I kind of was brought up to that speed of idea by a good bit of information on the internet, but specifically a video by a person called Pointless Hub. They do some reviews and stuff that I find interesting and funny. I'll link that in the post. And then another thing was just recently I was driving to a wildlife safari up in Oregon, and I was seeing so many billboard ads, and I don't know, I always find it so funny. Some of the billboard ads were kind of ludicrous and weird, and like I had no idea what they were trying to sell or show me, and I never ended up seeing whatever they were trying to say, so they were probably out of date, but they were really weird. But other things were real. For instance, I saw one saying that there's a DQ soon, and I was like, dude, there's no Dairy Queen around here, and where I'm from, I would get Dairy Queen like every couple weeks. I liked it, but I haven't had it in like 2 years. So I was super excited to get it, and then I totally passed it and forgot. But I was excited to get it when I saw the media. Overall, I think media is something that definitely affects most people daily. I would say I have a pseudo unique perspective because I don't consume ads very often. If there's a website that I'm using that I cannot find a way to get rid of the ads, I don't use the website. I just don't. It's something I can't deal with. It annoys me to no end, so I just don't deal with it. I just realized I was fidgeting that whole time, and so there might be a clicking. That's a little fidget. I don't want to re-record all of this, but next time I'll remember not to do that if it is showing up. So yeah, I hope this was pseudo informational. See you around.